Kind of like our little fellowship time, we get stuck in a rut and we don't want to see new people here. The reason we don't want to see new people is because we lose our seat. We have our favorite seat. We have our favorite location. There'll be less food for us.
Oh, yeah.
So we're more concerned about there not being enough food and somebody taking our blue velvet seat than winning souls and getting them discipled in the Torah and in the things of Yahuwah. Can I get a witness?
Amen.
So a little house fellowship time is stagnant and loses the heart and the pulse of evangelism.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the downsides of embracing the pattern.
Yes.
We have embraced the pattern, but one of the downsides of embracing the pattern is we lose our hunger and our love for souls. When was the last time you brought somebody to this congregation? You don't want to mess up your ride. You like driving up alone. Let's be honest. You don't like picking people up. And then there's less food for you. When it gets hot, the air conditioner is only a 3-ton unit. In order for you to be cool and be comfortable, you got to keep that seat next to you empty. So ask yourself. Ask yourself, when was the last time you brought somebody to the synagogue? No, I'm serious. Ask yourself, are you set on coming here alone forever? Is that when you've determined to come here alone forever? That's not Yahuwah. That's not the Ruach. That's not the kingdom. The kingdom grows. The body grows. It nurtures. It's flourishing. It should be flourishing. It should be growing exponentially. So sometimes the life of a Sholiach requires for him to become an evangelist, a proclaimer. Other times the life of Sholiach requires for him to step in as a rabbi, as a pastor when the rabbi is absent, or when the situation requires his shepherding skills. Then there are other times when a Sholiach is required to be a moreh, a teacher, where he's able to teach things that the rabbi and the shepherd are not teaching, or not able to teach, or not qualified to teach, or missing, don't understand. You can't teach something you don't understand. Amen? Are you with me? Do you want me to stop now, or are you going to stay and keep your eyes open long now?
Amen.
Amen.
Keep going. Come on.
Let's keep rolling.
Let's keep rolling. Rocking and rolling.
Yes.
So, that's the point. The point is, when we come to the fivefold ministry, there'll be times when a Sholiach is required to teach things that the rabbi is not qualified to teach, or that the pastor is not qualified to teach, or doesn't want to teach, or is scared to teach, or is timid to teach, or is frightened to teach. And don't you think that there aren't places like that? There are places where the rabbis and the pastors know the truth, the whole thing. Whole wheat unleavened bread, 2 houses, sacred name, walking in Torah, the Moagim, matrimonia plural. They know it, but they're afraid. They have a spirit of timidity. They have a spirit of fear. They're men pleasers. If a pastor or a rabbi is a man pleaser, he needs a Sholiach to roll into town and light his butt on fire. And say, I'm going to remove you. If you don't teach the full counsel of Yahuwah, and if you don't share the full counsel of Yahuwah, I, as Sholiach, I'm going to remove you and your congregation and your ministry from our directory. And I'm going to roll into town if necessary and light a fire and say the things that you need to be saying and that you're too timid to say. So every Kehillah needs to be under apostolic covering. The reason we have the mess, and the reason it's known as the messy community, messianic community, or the Kirki, which is a circle of nothingness, is because they have forsaken and abandoned, and they have failed to acknowledge the role of the Sholiach and the life of the Sholiach in a healthy body of Yeshua.
Yeah.
In the local body, which is healthy and supposed to be healthy, as everybody needs a Sholiach. Everybody, every local body of Yeshua needs a Sholiach. When you don't believe the Shlichim exist, and you don't believe the apostles are for today, that means you don't need them. If you don't need them, you are left without the primary covering in divine government and in the order of how things are conducted. Because that Sholiach has the authority to move pieces around as he sees the need to move them around, and to relocate and redesignate and reassign within the local body. The pastor can't. He's too dependent on the tithes and the incomes for their livelihood. So the prophets can't, because the prophets don't have the skills needed to administrate. They just prophesy in boldness, but they don't have the skills needed to administrate. Hello? The evangelists don't have the skills needed to shepherd. The pastors are good pastors. They have men after Yahuwah's own heart, but they don't have the ability to evangelize and to set things in order in terms of administration. And teachers are plainly teachers. They have head knowledge, but they don't have a lot of practical knowledge, or they may not have a lot of experiential knowledge, or they may not have any experience. They may be novices and be easily puffed up and yet still be morim and morat. So it is because the body has rejected the role and the calling of the Sholiach that many of us are in the shape that we're in today. That the body of Yeshua is in disarray and the shape that we are in today. If we don't believe the apostles are for today, there are no more apostles, because by their religious definition, you had to be one of the 12 to be an apostle. I had one guy tell me on a radio show. He goes, "You ain't no apostle." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Not in my book." I said, "Humana. Why ain't I a real apostle?" Because he said, "Because there were only 12. Now, if there were only 12, then the body of Yeshua is in some bad shape, because there are some evangelists that are functioning as a pastor because there are no pastors in the local assembly. There are some teachers that are prophesying when they're prophesying stupidity. "I love you, I love you." That's not prophecy. That's Barney on PBS. That's a Barney show. Because you go to most places, when you have a pastor who's also trying to be a prophet, all of a sudden going to come out of his mouth, "Jay loves you, and he loves you, and you're fornicating." Don't worry about it. The blood, brother. It's all about the blood. He loves you anyway, and there's no consequences. So you have round pieces in square pegs, or is it the other way around? You have square pegs and round holes?
Yes.
Okay, and this is what happens. It is the life and the calling of the Sholiach to make sure round pieces go into round holes, to move the pieces around until we all come into a perfect unity of the faith and a oneness in knowledge and walk in the knowledge of the Son of Yahuwah. And that's why people don't like the Sholiach. They don't want to recognize that the Sholiach is even applicable to this generation, because he's the one with the most authority. And we're trained to run from authority, and we're trained to rebel against authority, and we're trained in this modern Western society for no one except Jesus to tell me what to do. So rather than deal with the shlichim that have the authority and the life of a shaliach, we just pretend that it passed away when Yochanan died on the island, supposedly died on the Isle of Patmos, which we know is also not true. He's still alive as one of the two witnesses. But regardless, let's assume John did die on the Isle of Patmos, which we know is not true. But let's assume he did. So what? So therefore, I don't need an apostle. In other words, I don't need mom, I don't need dad, I don't need an employer. I don't work for anybody. I do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, and no one speaks into my life. I don't allow anybody to speak into my life, because if they look at me wrong, or if they speak into my life, I will punch them out, or I'll punch their lights out, because I am an independent free agent. Correct?
Can't believe that.
You're right. Until the day of reckoning. Then you're going to find out that you've had a Lord all along, and you have despised the Maryah. And the Maryah wanted you under divine government. He wanted your life straightened out, not at death, but during life.
Amen.
And that's why he gave you the fivefold ministry. To straighten out your life. During your life, not when you're dead and you can't enjoy life anymore. Yeshua said in Yochanan 10:10, "I have come that you may have life, and that you might have it more abundantly."
Amen.
So instead of rebelling against the life of a Sholiach and the fivefold ministry, we ought to embrace all five of the folds.
I like that.
Turn to your neighbor and say, "I want to embrace all five of the folds."
I want to
embrace all five. But a Sholiach has the authority, don't miss this now, in his life. And this is why his life is very hard. There's a lot of hardships. It's fraught with a lot of hardships. Why? Because the life of a Sholiach sometimes requires him, Vladi, to be a Navi. So